Late August had been unusually rainy in Illinois, so the fast-moving water in the ditch measured at least a foot deep, a sure sign it was cold. If the carcass the vulture sought had died in the water, it was probably well preserved. In spite of his grown-up concern about dead animals and toxic field runoff, he was tempted to splash his face and cool his hands and feet in the ditch as he had done so many times as a boy. Willie scrambled down the bank and ducked under the bridge. This was familiar territory. The flat rock where he'd scratched his initials still rested there, the WG now barely visible. Willie dropped his backpack to the ground, pulled out his shirt tail and unbuttoned his plaid flannel shirt, flapping the edges for ventilation. Then he plopped down at the edge of the water, rolled up his pant legs, and took off his boots and socks. The silt quickly turned the water to a muddy soup when Willie thrust one foot into the stream, held it in the water until numb from the cold, then stretched his leg out so his foot rested in the sun. Scooting even closer to the ditch, he rolled up his sleeves and pulled a red print handkerchief from his pocket. When the dirt settled and the stream cleared, he wet the cloth and washed his face. After rinsing the handkerchief, Willie started to hang it on the bridge to dry, but changed his mind when he thought of the dust cloud raised by the combine. He stood up and stepped into the stream, shivering a little at first, but feeling good inside because the old ditch had come through for him again, just like it always had when he was a kid. Stomping in the water and swirling the muddy silt as he walked, he made his way toward the raspberry brambles. About 10 feet away from his destination, he halted as the vulture abruptly landed at the top of the bank between Willie and the raspberry canes. There it sat, still as a statue, even when Willie took another step forward and waved his arms. The two stared at each other, motionless. Maybe this isn't a good sign, Willie thought. He sniffed the air, expecting the stench of dead animal, but smelled nothing except fresh harvested wheat and sun-baked straw. "Go on," Willie yelled. He waved the handkerchief at the vulture. It backed up a couple of steps and stopped, its unblinking eyes now focused on the red flag. "I mean it. Get on out of here." Willie picked up a few pebbles from the ditch bank and tossed them toward the bird. It sidestepped the missiles and backed closer to the brambles. Willie decided to hang the bandana on the other side of the brush. Antagonizing this unwelcome companion didn't seem the best way to handle the standoff. The creature was far too ugly not to have an equally unpleasant disposition. Willie edged past the raspberry patch and waded farther up the ditch. The bird thrust his head forward and two-stepped his way along the bank in an obvious effort to stop Willie's approach. They stopped again and stared at each other for several seconds. Willie looked away first. The bird's blank gaze gave him the creeps. Avoiding eye contact with the vulture, Willie nervously studied the huge raspberry patch again. He noticed a few wilted leaves and bits of damp soil clinging to the roots. The rambling plants had clearly been ripped out of the ground and dumped into this field, and not so long ago either. At one edge of the pile near the ground, a black shape poked through the green and brown vegetation. Willie ignored the buzzard and climbed further up the bank to get a better look. A shoe. A man's black leather shoe. He reached out and gave it a sharp tug, but couldn't pull it free. He let go, stepped back, and then stood very still. The shoe is most likely attached to a foot. Fear crawled down his spine, leaving a wet streak that soaked through his shirt. Damn! Willie let his breath go with a whoosh. Bird, dead bodies have given me nightmares ever since Nam. He took a deep breath. But I guess I better check this out. Moving closer to the brambles, Willie leaned over and pulled some of the stalks apart, painfully snagging his fingers in the process. Above the shoe, a strip of black sock led to the bottom edge of a black pant leg. Willie dropped the brush back into place. Good place to hide a body, he thought. A raspberry patch picked clean of berries wouldn't get any attention before next year's berry picking season. And if this patch had been pulled and stacked up for burning...